The secondhand clothing industry is not the problem, it's a vital part of the solution.
What is often reported is really quite different from the realities on the ground.
We would want to be part of the decision-making process by those policymakers.
Reusing clothing is essential to avoiding textiles ending up in landfills, generating environmental pollution. No textile should be considered waste, since thousands of used clothing companies worldwide work to give each garment a second chance of use.
We still have a huge production of new products, and we need to think about the environment as well as the economy, find out how can we actually do this in a way so that people can reduce their overconsumption and start using more secondhand clothes instead of new and fast fashion stuff. If we look at what is exported from Norway, something between 80 and 90% of what is exported is reused directly as it is. Reusing could benefit a lot more people than we do now.
When a garment is no longer worthy of being worn, it can enter into upcycling processes, giving it a greater artistic and human value by making from this garment a new product, thus supporting a circular economy. Reusing textiles before recycling them is essential and should always be taken into account.
Authorities are now developing what we call the end of waste criteria, and this will be both for the reuse and for the recycling in order to bring more clarity into what is a waste and what is a product.
The secondhand clothing industry is not a competitor for the large textiles producers, but an ally in the search for a more conscious and environmentally sustainable textile consumption. A study by the Politècnica, University of Catalonia, has found that reusing 1 kilo of clothing saves 25 kilograms of CO2 emissions.
The secondhand clothing industry is not the problem, it's a vital part of the solution, creating both social and environmental values. Tighter restrictions on secondhand trade would worsen the environmental crisis they seek to solve. If post-consumer textiles cannot flow freely to where they can be reused and recycled, they will simply pile up in Europe, wasting all the energy, water and labor already invested in their production. At the same time, people in developing countries would be forced to buy new, driving fast fashion and its destructive cycle of overproduction and pollution. A 2024 Oxford economic study commissioned by Humana People to People found that second-hand clothing from the EU and UK sustains tens of thousands of livelihoods in Africa and Asia. This trade represents one of the largest sources of employment in the service sector. Restricting it would mean removing economic opportunities from some of the world's most vulnerable communities.
The extended producer responsibility may lead to a decrease or even an end to the export of used clothing to countries such as Kenya, Ghana, and Tanzania. This would seriously damage the economy of the region. In Ghana alone, around 2.5 million people are involved in the used clothing trade.
There is nothing like used clothing or textiles becoming a problem in Africa. In fact, if you rank the composition of items we find on the landfill sites, clothing constitutes less than 1%, with plastics rather being the major items you really see on the landfill sites. When you come to Ghana, what you may consider a waste could be of a purpose here. Some textiles could be used as mops for cleaning. So the way that we should really be looking in this industry would really be to look at reuse.
Secondhand clothes is a very key in Africa and in Kenya, especially where I am. Provides livelihoods to a lot of people, from the exporters to the traders to the loaders, are able to educate their families because of this sector. So it's a very critical sector for the Kenyan economy. It offers African people dignity by being able to wear fashionable clothes at a very affordable rate. The local textile in Africa is still juvenile, and also the cost is out of reach for many people. So the second-hand clothes comes in to be able to provide that social welfare.
What is often reported is really quite different from the realities on the ground. And we can introduce them to those people who work on the ground, and they will be able to tell you exactly how it is without the filter of those who sit in the global north and impose their views on what should be happening in those particular countries.
There are few regulations that have been proposed where they will limit or restrict movement of second-hand clothes in receiving markets. These decisions are made by people who do not understand the sector. Those are the things that we would want to be part of the decision-making process by those policymakers.
According to the United Nations Environment Programme, many items of clothing are only worn 7 to 10 times before being thrown away. Just because a garment is no longer wanted does not mean it is trash.
We've been collecting for reuse really since the 1980s, and we've had a really good established relationships with traders in particular markets. What we're now finding is that the used clothing industry is only collecting a fraction of what is actually potentially available.
We need to make sure that such policies do not restrict the trade of second-hand clothing. Reuse of clothing is at the core of textile circularity. If the lifespan of clothes are being extended through reuse, it helps to limit the demand for manufacturing of new clothing. It takes about 2,700 liters of water to make a new t-shirt. So it's extremely important that although policies in regards to Waste Framework Directive not restrict the trade. And one of the issues that we have with recycling is that we need to get it to a point over the years whereby it's able to make money, because you can't keep on pumping funding into something that is not sustainable. Reuse is sustainable.
Whether it is reusing, upcycling, or recycling, as a society, we must take urgent action to make our world a more sustainable place where we can continue to dress ourselves without threatening the planet we live on.
The second-hand sector plays a crucial role in promoting a circular textile economy by ensuring that post-consumer textiles are reused. We are processing around 12,000 tons of post-consumer textiles yearly. We operate 44 second-hand stores. Last year sold about 5 million pieces of clothes only via own stores in Bulgaria. The operation creates today around 500 green jobs. Around 65 to 70% of the clothes that we sort are divided into different reuse products. Another estimated 25% becomes recycling products, and the remaining 5 to 10% mainly is directed to incineration for energy recovery. Only when all possibilities for reuse are exhausted should textile enter into recycling streams. This approach ensures that the environmental footprint of clothing is minimized, extending the life garments and reducing the need for new production.
Reusing before recycling as much as possible. For example, upcycling has become a perfect second chance for clothing. If it is no longer worth wearing it, let's find new ways to use it.